so excited to have Howard Lindeman on today. I know that you have gone through what's called adult stem cell therapy. I know nothing about it. Take us back to the beginning, how it all started. I know when you were 39 years old, you kind of had a life-changing health scare. So tell us what happened.
It, believe it or not, all began in about 1987. And I was still living in New York City. And I had gotten basically fed up with the music industry at that period of time. And I had an opportunity to move to Hawaii. And I did a partnership in a dive store as an instructor on Kauai. X amount of time rolled by and I moved over to Maui. Continued life. The scary part about it, I knew nothing about what was going on inside of my body, heart-wise, or for that matter, anything else, because I was at the peak of health. I was in the water 7 days a week. I was training. I was taking people on dive trips, hauling dive gear, dive tanks all day long, back and forth from the store to the boat. And I was in extreme physical shape. And in 1989, now we add 2 years to that, and I'm living on Maui, I got a heart attack laying on the beach one day with some friends, and they were playing volleyball and stuff like that. It wasn't enough to kill me because here I am. But that was the beginning of finding out that I had coronary heart disease. My dad died from it, and my grandfather died from it. But we have to add to that. Starting in 1975, when I got into the music industry, I ended up applying for a job at the Wes Farrell organization. Wes Farrell was a writer, Partridge Family, David Cassidy, all that stuff that I didn't listen to because I was in Grateful Dead, I was in Janis Joplin, I was in the Airplane. But regardless of the type of music that Wes was writing and producing, my job was a messenger. And luckily, I was messaging, as it was called, to all the recording studios in New York City. And I was delivering and picking up tapes, not only for myself, but for Wes. And I got to know all of the people in recording studios. And one day I was offered a job in 1975 in the Record Plant, which is the major recording studio in the United States, in the world for that matter, during that period of time. And one of the funny things that Roy Cicala, who owned the Record Plant, said to me is, during my interview, do I know how to align a tape machine? And I basically said, no, what's that? And he said, you're hired. And I continued through life. And diving was always in my life until 87, when I went, I'm fed up with it, went to Hawaii, spent a long time in Hawaii and ran George Benson's studio on Maui. Still was feeling good, but had the heart attack. So things were percolating. Didn't know really where it was going, except that I had it and they had implanted a stent in my heart in one vessel. And time goes on, and George decided to sell Lahaina Recording Studios, Lahaina Sound as it was called. And at that point came back to the mainland and was invited back by many, thank God. Roberta Flack in particular said, yeah, come on back. And whether it be the studio or the road, let's get back to work. All of this time within the music industry, let's call it, whether it be production and recording, which is what I do, this thing that was in here called my heart was struggling, I guess, easiest way to say it. And I felt good until I started to feel real bad again when I met the doctor in Naples, who he and I talked privately and started to talk about this thing called adult stem cell therapy. And I had no idea what it was, what it is, when he offered that to me. My answer was, sure, okay. I mean, why not? And we did a bunch of tests and I was approved, and we flew down to the hospital in the Dominican Republic. And over the next few days, we prepped and then did the procedure. And during that time, the procedure was a little bit different than it is now. And I can kind of roll the tape backwards a little bit and say the difference. The difference then compared to now is that it has progressed as science changes and gets better and better and better and better. When I had it done, they take a very large blood draw, send that blood draw off to a laboratory, and at that period of time, the only lab that did the cultivation of your stem cells was in Israel, and it was in Jerusalem. Only lab on the planet Earth.
Did you feel like a guinea pig?
Yeah, and a good one, even though I wasn't that chubby. But yeah, I felt, and from what I understand, and I could be just wrong, I think, well, from what I was told and remembering, I was the 50th person on the planet Earth that had this procedure done. A gentleman that also lived in Naples that owned a restaurant was the one who turned my doctor on to what this procedure was. And my doctor took it and ran with it and experimented and became, and as far as I'm concerned, still is one of the leading scientists in this form of research, medical research or science research, however we want to look at it. And we went down and I had it done, waited in the DR for the courier, because they actually had a courier take my blood to Israel and then return it and bring it right to the hospital in the DR, where there I was laying in the operating room, people in spacesuits and extreme sanitary conditions, and the hospital in the DR and the facility and the people were absolutely grade A. They were some of the best doctors, nurses, attendants, facility that I've ever dealt with in my life. It was amazing. It was like a seven-star hotel.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you trust them? But it sounds like you trusted them.
100%, and the beaches were great. And they did the procedure, had a little bit of a problem during the procedure, which we laugh at, and laugh at it because I have to laugh at the ugly sometime. And when the doctor went in and had to block one of the arteries because of the massive amount of blockage that my heart had, my heart stopped. And I basically flatlined on the table. And as I laugh about with my doctor, because he said to me, "Yep, you gave me the sphincter effect." And we still laugh about that because, yeah, if anything can tighten somebody's behind up, death can. And of course, he revived me and I was okay because I was gone for a little while and I knew exactly where I went. And it was quite incredible for that part of the story. But long story short, here I am now in 2024, doing great, with the exception is that he's not here. He's still on the earth, but he lives in Naples, Florida. And now that I'm up in basically in North Carolina, outside of Raleigh, I had to be introduced to new doctors and so on and so on. And that practice to them goes into that conversation that we were having. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some want to talk about it, some don't. So it started that realm of getting to know a doctor, blah, 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 blah. Oh, we're going to have to put you on this. Oh, we're going to have to do this. Where, making a long story longer, now it's going on 2 years. They gave me emergency open heart surgery, which if I was with my doctor in Florida, I know we would have gone back to the DR and done this again. But not only didn't I have that funding, because again, it's gotten a lot more expensive, plus airfare, plus hotel, even though my doctor did something more than the thank you can ever do, which is we love each other like family. And he took care of it out of pure love. And he said, "I'm taking care of you and you're in my life forever. Don't worry about it. You're on me." And that's the way he takes care of me now, which is a rarity in the medical world. that dollars don't count, because usually dollars come in first. And so I just had open heart surgery. I'm doing great, feeling great, have the typical, have to go every X amount of time to the doctor and visit the doctor, and new drugs and taking me off of this drug. And I just saw him in Naples because I went down to see him for my lower back and my knees to do PRP therapy. And once again, the way he treated me was like family. And I was in so much pain because of what I do for a living. And I'll explain that as we get to know each other and learn more about what I do. Crawling around and either under recording consoles or mixing consoles or stages or wherever, my back started to get terrible again. So I went down and he did PRP therapy on my back and knees about a month ago. And I'm doing wonderful. No pain whatsoever. Not limping upstairs anymore. It took maybe an hour and a half, and it's absolutely a fabulous procedure for those people that might have disc problems, knee problems, joint problems. PRP therapy is the way to go, and I talk about it with people all the time. So now we kind of roll that up into what I do for a living outside of the regular person's job, because this is not really a job when we look at that word. When people say, what do you do for a job? Right away it's, oh yeah, X amount of hours a day, X amount of days. No, the music industry is a life. And if I'm in the recording studio, most proper, and I'll say that humorously, most proper recording studios don't have any clocks, because time doesn't exist. You start and you finish when you finish.
That is true. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard of like recording artists in the studio till 2 a.m, 3 a.m.
Or never going home.
Or never. Right. I have heard about that. Yep.
When I was working on a particular album with Roberta Flack and with Richard Tyson and Cicely Tyson's movie, we were working over 130 hours a week. And it didn't even see home, to a point where one day when my assistant and I went to the front door of the Hit Factory and we were ready to go out onto the street, I stopped and I looked at him and I went, suppose New York City's gone. That's how in space we kind of are in a recording studio. Yeah, New York City could have been evaporated or sunk or who knows what, and we wouldn't even really know it because we were living the project. And that was Bustin' Loose with Richard Pryor and Cicely Tyson. And the movie company, I think it was 20th Century, if I'm not mistaken, they just started putting more and more pressure on us, and we had to work and 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 work to get it to them on time, because they had a release that they had to make. And so whether it's a recording studio that doesn't have a clock, or you don't want to know what time it is because it doesn't matter, or you're on the road, which I'm about to do. I'm about to go out on the road next week for a few dates with Oleta Adams. And you fly. Sometimes you're lucky enough to have the next day off before you go in for your first show. But most of the time, it's around an 8 a.m. in. And so now we add an in time at 8 a.m. to start setting up and getting ready for sound check, which is usually, 2 or 3 in the afternoon before doors at 6 or 7. Then show is 8. So now if we say 8 to 8, there's a 12-hour day, 2 or 3 hours for a show, then load out. So every day is an easy 16 to 18 hours. Then you sleep as little as you can and travel the next day. And that can go on for months. Or as we get a little bit older, we start not taking these 6-month tours, even though they're great because you live the project, but you never sleep and you're gone from home. I know people that don't even have a place to live because they're on the road so much. They just live in hotels. So those hours, plus the mental fatigue, the mental stress, the physical fatigue and stress to make sure everything is right. And in the way I look at it is I treat a stage or a live performance the same as I do a recording studio. I treat the mix and the feel the same as I do a record. And I want those people in the audience to feel like they're listening to a record. And when I got my crossover kind of opportunity was, again, going all the way back into the 70s with Roberta Flack, who I'd worked for many, 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 many years. And with the Donny Hathaway record with her, Roberta said to me one day, Howie, I want to take you on the road. And I kind of went, okay, why? And she very simply said, I want my shows to sound like the records we do. And so I was one of those crossover guys where they usually are not. Usually what is called a front of house engineer or a live engineer, those worlds don't cross. Studio and live are two separate worlds. I was lucky enough going all the way back to the 70s to be one of those guys. So I did both. And here I am at 72 years old, believe it or not, still doing it, still enjoying it, even though, sure, it gets harder and harder because the world has gotten harder and harder. But I fought my way through, not only learning as the analog world changed to the digital world, but then I look at the body and I go, wow, I guess things are changing in there too. And sometimes we are at bay to what they feed you. I did a tour X amount of years ago, and I remember walking into catering and there was like 20 or 30 buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and that's all they were giving us. And I'm like, I can't do that. But if you don't eat it, you're not eating.
Right.
So it depends on the tour, depends on the quality of the tour, what their budget is. I also do the Elvis Presley live on screen tours, which is fabulous. And catering is like a 7-star restaurant. It's absolutely great. And they learn you and they learn what you're allowed to eat and what not to. And those tours are rare. But when you get them, it's absolutely wonderful because you're not killing yourself.
So they talk about work-life balance. I feel like you're more work-health balance. So how do you balance? I mean, I know you just said you enjoy what you do, but I'm sure you have to set boundaries or you have to like listen to your body. I mean, how do you do all that?
Insanity.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. All
That's
right.
the easiest way to say it. How do you deal with all that? By being nuts? I have to learn the crossover of when not to. And if we want to look at the ugly side of when not to, yeah, being in the studio world, being in the music industry, things to do were available all the time. And I was I was never really a pot smoker. I was more of a hash smoker in the early days, especially in the 60s. But then as the studio world and more money came, cocaine came into play. And we look at it and we've talked as the doctors, yeah, cocaine probably had a good percentage of what it did to ruining part of my system. But many, many years ago, when Richard Pryor burned himself up, when Jim Belushi died, I was involved with all of those people. And one night I got a phone call from one of the guys in the Blues Brothers band, and we had just left Saturday Night Live, and we were not in the greatest of ways. And the phone call kind of resulted in me going, I'm done. And I'm done. And now I look back and I go, yeah, I'm really done. I've been clean and sober 39 years plus. Don't do anything. I'll have a glass of wine every now and then, and that is it. So when you say the health side of it, yeah, if we don't pay attention to it, no one else is going to. People can say, don't do this, don't do that, what you should do, what you can do. Erase all of that. You have to decide what you want to do to keep yourself healthy what you're going to do to make yourself healthy, whether it's food or exercise or big smiles. And as I joke with people all the time, if you can't wake up with a smile on your face, sleep with a hanger in your mouth. Simple as that.
Tip of the day. So are you able to choose your schedule or your projects, or are you kind of, when they say, I need you, let's go, like, do you set your schedule? I mean, I assume not. Like, if there's stuff coming up, like, how do you control not being overworked?
You can't.
Okay. So you're
Because
still being overworked at your age?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now, when we look at that overwork, are we doing it or are they doing it? It depends. When I do studio work, which is still my preference, my love, as you can see behind me, I kind of mix or record, not necessarily at my leisure because everything has got a clock against it, but I don't have to work a 20-hour day unless I want to. I just finished a big soundtrack for a movie that will be coming out called Deep River. And a lot of songs, a lot of work. And I mixed when I wanted to, anywhere from 3 to 20-hour days, basically. On the road, it's different because we have a schedule that has been given to us, not only from the airlines, but from the venue and the artist, and when the audience is coming. There's a show tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. There's our schedule. We have to get there. We have to be ready and hopefully be awake to do it properly. So those schedules we're not in control of. And my preference is, again, is mixing in the studio because I have the ability to say no. And no, I'm not going to tomorrow. I'm going to give my body and my ears a rest. And I do. Or I tell the client, can we, is it okay? How do you want to work? And so many times I'm working by myself, so there isn't a lot of pressure of somebody else traveling and wanting to get it done. So it has its ups and downs depending on how we look at it. But I still, at this time in my life and with the career that I've had, I get to say no when I want to because I am a multiple award winner from, I guess, the R&B to the rock and roll to the jazz world. I've been very lucky because of the type of artists that I've worked with. Like we were talking about Roberta Flack, Natalie Cole, the original Hair album, Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life, Agent Provocateur with Foreigner. So, and more and more and more, and country stuff. So my world is vast because one, I care. Two, I pay attention to what I'm doing. And I don't cut corners to make something right. I make it right from the get-go. And that has allowed me the ability, the leisure, the love of being able to say, no, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to rest. Or, yeah, let's go. Or on the negative side, no, I'm sorry. I'm not interested in your project. It's not for me. And I can say, sure, I'll do your project because it's about money. But then I'm wrong. Because if I'm doing it for the money, I'm not doing it for the love of what the music or the project is. And to me, that's the same as prostitution. You're doing it to make money and you don't care who's getting in your car. I can't work like that. I have to have quality control over myself.
So when you were doing stem cell therapy, you had your open heart surgery. Were you on any kind of medical leave? Was your job waiting on you? Like, what was going on with your work when all that was going on? Like, you still had a job, right? Like, it was waiting for you when you recovered?
Yes and no. So when we look at that job, since I work for me and I don't work for a company, the scary thing is, but I was also lucky because during that pandemic time, there wasn't a lot of things going on. Luckily, a couple of the things that I turned down were only short-term things. It wasn't like somebody said, oh yeah, we want to bring you in for a world tour, et cetera, et cetera. I was lucky enough to schedule or have it scheduled during a quiet period. If it were, sure, I would have probably lost a bunch of things because a tour a show, a record can't wait for you. They will move on and get somebody else to take care of it because they have to. And they'll say, well, hey, feel better. We'll talk to you later. And sometimes you never ever hear from them ever again. And yes, that has happened recently also. Oh yeah, we'll call you. And they never do. And then you get into the other scary thing. We look at what age versus health does. And I know there's a certain amount that I'll never know that are not calling me because, maybe he'll get sick when he's out here on the road with us, or is he too old? And so you start fighting multiples to keep yourself going and keep yourself in touch with people. Luckily, my reputation also helps lead my way. And that alone speaks for itself because these people that bring me back know who I am and what I have to offer them.
All right, so we have a few minutes left. So
Okay.
you get to play my fun this or that game. Do you want to play my fun
Sure.
this or that
Sure.
game?
Sure.
All right, are you ready?
Absolutely.
All right, steak or Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Steak.
An all-inclusive resort or a 7-day cruise?
All inclusive.
All right.
Well, it depends. If it's on Cunard line, I'll take the cruise.
All right. Cookies or cake?
Cookies.
Cookies. All right. Last one, recording studio or live concert?
Recording studio.
There we go. And why is that?
Because I get a chance to become an ass.
There you
And
go.
the reason I say that positively, because when you become that finite, you can climb into something. And if you need to spend 12 hours on a guitar sound, you have that availability. And also with today's travel, which sucks, I prefer to be in the studio at my leisure and climb under a microscope of music.
That's interesting. Because I'm a working actor and now they do self-tape auditions since, COVID and everything. And I'm kind of liking the whole self-tape auditions because you can redo your audition about 20, 50 times.
Correct.
So, hey, I will take a self-tape audition over a live, put me in front of a casting director.
Correct.
So, well, it was so nice to have you on and just share your story of you've had multiple second chances in life. So
a whole bunch. In fact, I think every day is a second chance at this point. Again, going back to family life, Tracy, who is here with me, who I live with here, she watches my butt like a hawk to make sure I take care of myself, make sure I eat as best as I can. And when she goes to get a snack at night and I go, bring me cupcakes, she goes, no.
Yep. You will get no cookies or cake from Tracy. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on.
Absolutely pleasure. And holler anytime and we can continue and let me know.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.